Asia, and welcome to the situation report. The Putin basically wore his military uniform the first time in some say 2021. I personally have never seen it before. Because I'm not I'm not pro Russia, or I don't stalk Putin or or see any so much Russian stuff before the war, so that's a surprise to me. And it seems to be sending a message because Zelensky and Trump have this peace deal, right? So the latest is that Putin say that he agrees in principle the 30-day ceasefire, but only in principle. In actual practice, no. They just didn't say that. They just didn't say no. They just say no. By principle, yes. But the insistence of the Russian side is that they want to ensure that the peace deal actually leads to long-term peace, not a temporary truce like the Minsk deals. So what's happening right now is that the American delegation is now in Moscow talking in a closed-door meeting with the Russians. So my personal feeling is that they're not going to get a deal. They're not going to get a deal. So Russia will continue their offensive because they are doing very well. The only way the Russians will accept is that Ukraine agrees in this deal right now, to withdraw entirely from the 4 regions that the Russians have decided to annex. So it's the Sumy. So there is not Sumy. This is the border. In case you can't see, I think is okay, something like this. So and then of course here. So this is Lugansk. This is Lugansk. This is Donetsk, Zaporizhia, and Kherson. And if the Ukrainians agree to immediately withdraw entirely from the Lugansk, from Donetsk, from Zaporizhia, and from the Kherson region, including all of these areas north of the river, Russia will agree to a peace deal. That's my gut feeling. But the thing is, similar to how Israel negotiate with the Palestinian issues, they always offer like I would say they so-called offer a peace deal. Even some of it is actually something that they don't want. But the Israeli always know the Palestinian leaders, be it Hamas or the Palestinian Authority, will reject it. Like they wouldn't even read the paper at all. They would just reject it. I believe Putin, Zelensky will reject it as well. So they will say that no, if Ukraine dares to do this immediately, that means suddenly they disengage from the battles and they just all withdraw out of these 4 oblasts that the Russians have constitutionally annexed. It doesn't mean that it's legal or is recognized or whatnot. I don't care about your moral and ethics. No, it's your morals and ethics have no bearing on the reality. I'm just saying that constitutionally in Russia they have already annexed all these 4 territories, and they're currently right now doing military operations to recover and conquer all the regions that they have claimed to have annexed. So if the Ukrainians dare to do this, we're gonna get a peace deal. But honestly, no. Honestly, can you imagine the Ukraine would just retreat entirely out of Zaporizhia, including Zaporizhia city? It's a big city. Do you imagine that could happen? Get out of Kramatorsk and Sloviansk without a fight, give up all this territory at the maximum extent. We're talking about 100 kilometers worth of territory. No, the Ukrainians are not going to do that. There's no clear indications they have the goodwill to do this. Before their talks with the Americans, they launched a massive drone strike, which I reported yesterday's SITREP. So it's not going to happen. So I don't think this is I don't think this peace deal is going to make it. The negotiations will go on for months, which means that the war is likely to be continuing. I don't think the Ukrainian side is going to make this kind of concession, and the Russians is definitely going to ask them. And to the Ukrainians, this will be a big ask to retreat out of all the four oblasts. It's a big ask of Ukraine, and Ukrainians will reject it. But to the Russians, this is a small ask because the Russians have definitely bigger aims. And for those that are not aware, I believe the Russians is going to conquer all of this. All of this area eventually is going to be all Russians, and maybe here as well. Maybe this will be given to Belarus. So and then there will be two new republics around here. No, I think they will do. No, I shouldn't use blue. I should use like another color. And then Ukraine will be like this. Yeah, it will be a tiny Ukraine. This is what I think the Russians' final plan is going to be. Totally push Ukraine away and not share a border with Russia. That's what I think is going to happen if the war continues to play out. And as per I have projected in a different video, I already mentioned, Ukraine is merely 3 to 6 months away from totally unable to fight properly. Like they would not even be able to defend properly in around 3 to 6 months. So the Russians definitely already know that the Ukraine is running close to their limits, and in around June, September, you will start to see massive collapse of front lines, and then you will start to see all the big arrow movements, and the Ukrainians will be routed again and again and again. So I don't think that the peace deal is going to happen. I think Russia will drag it out. Zelensky will also drag it out. And so this is going to be a nothing burger. So just to put this up front. And okay, so happy birthday to you. Yay! Happy birthday. For those that are having birthday today. And for those that do not have birthday, you can still be happy, it's okay, not every day is your birthday. So, you cannot be so greedy, right? So, and frontline changes already have been reported. So, this is the frontline changes as well. So, we are going to the Kursk front. So, the Russian forces have been geolocated. So, let's go from west to south. But generally, this is the front line right now. And with the latest update from the Russian side, the pro-Russian mapping, is that the Russian forces have captured Molovoy as well as taking most of Goncharovka. So we'll go into deeper later. So let's zoom in a bit here. So Basivka. So the Russian forces previously we've said that they have flank into the western part of Basivka. The latest is that the geolocation of Russian forces seems to suggest that the Russians have punched into Basivka and captured a lot of grounds around here. So the Ukrainians clearly do not have the defensive capability right now, it seems, to deal with the Russian momentum. So not necessarily mean that the Russians are stronger per se right now, but it's just that the momentum, it affects the morale. When you are the defenders, it's like if the momentum is against you, it's just very hard to fight, even though you might have the same manpower, same weapons or whatever. I'm quite sure many of you guys play computer games, right? First person shooter, be it CS, Battlefield, or some other games. You know that there's a momentum. When the momentum is against you, you will find it really hard to fight, even though there is inside a computer game, you're all equal, right? You're all equal, but the momentum will just roll you over for some unknown reasons. So I think this is what's currently happening over here. And so over within these areas, I believe I've covered in the SITREP yesterday with the Ukrainian mapping have acknowledged the Russian advances in this region here. So these are all nothing new. The new one is over in the south, over in the Goncharovka region and Molovoy. This piece here is 17.4 square kilometers is claimed by the Russian mapping Ryba to have been taken by the Russian forces. This includes the forest in the south of Molovoy, north of Krylovka and Goncharovka, as well as the forest or the gullies south of Goncharovka. The fighting is now allegedly on the western part of Goncharovka. The Ukrainians probably are still trying their best to defend, to hold the grounds. Sursky have sent a message on Telegram, and it was shared by the Ukrainian army or the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense, saying that they will be holding the grounds to fight in Kursk as much as they can. But no, they say that they will prioritize the life of their soldiers, which I find it like a total contradiction. It don't make sense at all. But but that's a Sursky thing. Sursky always says that we care for our soldiers, so let's send them to some useless mission and let them die. But that seems to be the case. So the Ukrainians are likely to continue to put up a resistance, but I don't think that they will be able to do much. Also, some clarification. Some of you guys told me that this is not part of Sudzha. I think the Russian dudes, Russian guys, in the DPA army say that Goncharovka is its own thing, Sudzha is its own thing, Zaleshenka is its own thing. So that means that the Russians may have actually retaken the entire Sudzha. But yeah, it's okay. I mean, I personally see this whole thing as Sudzha, and this is just a district of Sudzha. But that's me. I think I don't know anything. I'm not a Russian, but just to say this, the Russian Defense Ministry reported fighting in this region here. Gogolevka is mentioned. I have already changed it to a fighting icon because the possibility of the Russians attacking directly to Gogolevka. Oleshnya is also the same thing. I have changed it to the fighting icon. Fighting is reported at Goncharovka, Malovoye, Kurilovka. So the Russian Defense Ministry is still talking about all these places, Sudzha, Zaleshenka, and even Cherkasskaya Konopelka is mentioned to be still fighting. So there's probably some remnants of Ukrainian forces around here where they are still fighting against. It is important to note that all this mapping is just arbitrary. It's just an estimation of where the front line is. But in real life, it's not so straightforward. Like, the lines can be quite blurred. There can be people that you missed out and then they are now behind you. So that's a very normal thing. The police have full control of your city, of where you stay. There's still criminals there, right? So there's still bad guys around. So it's what it is. And with new reports, also new list of grounds announced to be captured. This time around we have Kozacha Loknia, Viktoroy Knezi, then Pervy Knezi. I don't know if I actually pronounce it Knyazi. And that's a very hard word to pronounce. Merne Zamoste. So all this is being announced to be captured by the Russian forces. Further south, so that's all, I think. That's all. So the weird one is this one. Cherkasskaya Poroshnoi is actually mentioned that they are still inflicting fire damage on the Ukrainians, which is this way in the rear positions. It means that there might be some Ukrainian forces, in the rear positions that have not surrendered and also is encircled and unable to get out. So there is still a lot of clearing operations to do for the Russian forces. And also there is also another thing on the geopolitical side. So this is the Kursk front. I think that's basically about it. Fighting is reported at Guevo as well. Might be from the north, not sure. And a geolocation of FPV drone strike on Ukrainian logistic in the rear. So that's mainly it for the Kursk front. I want to also note one more thing. Let me pull out my Twitter. So there is important note. So the Russian Defense Ministry posted this. Basically, Putin, like I mentioned, Putin visited the command post in the Kursk front, and they talk about it, and so they talk all this nonsense thing. Then they basically say that no, they will treat all Ukrainian soldiers captured as terrorists. So they're not going to be POWs. They are going to be treated as terrorists, and so they're going to be punished as terrorists. It seems to be the case. On top of that, foreign mercenaries will not be protected by the Geneva Convention. So I wonder what that's supposed to mean. Are they going to be found and immediately killed off, or are they going to be tortured or something. Is unknown, right? We're not sure how brutal modern Russia is. So it's kind of unknown what they're going to do to this, because they wouldn't be considered prisoner of war. And also, this is the important note. They say that they need to think about the future. We need to think about the future and creating a security zone along the border. And I wrote Sumy front now loading. So this is something that we have already, pondered upon, and it looks like the Sumy front is going to be born as a result of the Kursk offensive by the Russian forces. I believe that this is not going to be just on the Sumy region, Sumy Kursk region. I got a feeling that it's going to be much bigger. It might also include Chernihiv, so including Chernihiv region. Including this area here, Chernihiv region, the entire of Sumy region, so linking up with the let me pull up with the Kharkiv front, so which is currently already have a buffer, which actually works pretty well. The buffer at the Kharkiv region works very well because this buffer zone basically destroy any Ukrainian plans to attack Belgorod. Like Belgorod is actually the prime target. This is something that I mentioned early, very, very early before the Ukrainian counteroffensive in 2023. Yeah, I'm kind of like that. So many years is so confusing. So 2023 counteroffensive, I say before the offensive happened that the Ukrainians should go for Belgorod in a massive offensive and take Belgorod rather than take a smaller city like Sudzha. So and it would have been a much bigger bargain, but it ended up they didn't manage to do this because of the Russian buffer zone over here, protecting Belgorod, making an offensive operation towards Belgorod totally undoable. So this time round, so instead the Ukrainians went for Sudzha, and they actually wanted to go further, but they didn't manage to go much further, and because this is already a huge amount of grounds that they need to cover. And this operation has now failed. So the Russians is likely going to do some buffer zoning as well, and I feel like they're going to do a lot more buffer zoning. So I think it's likely going to be along the main roads, these regions here. I know this is not the situation report. This sounds like a bit more like the conclusions. This area here as well. All these main roads regions. I think the Russians may decide to just go on the incursion and build a defense line as a buffer zone into Ukraine. So yeah, this is just my prediction. So a bit of an unusual SITREP because I don't know because because I find that my SITREP timing is a bit late. I would prefer it to be done earlier, but I also need run time for the frontline changes report to get views and whatnot. If not, the videos will cannibalize each other. So yeah, it's a bit hard to manage because now I'm only posting on the main channel. I haven't posted on the war channel for a long time, at least a week now, because I'm trying to focus on the 100,000 subs thing. So subscribe if you haven't subscribed, because I find that it's really important to get to 100,000. If not, it feels like the algorithm is punishing DPA. So we need to really get into favor with YouTube, unfortunately. If not, then this guy this guy is pointing his gun at me. So press the like button and help me take him out. Oh, okay, thanks for sniping him. My God, you see, I'm getting pressured all the time. It's so difficult. So anyway, over in the Kozacha-Lopan sector of the Kharkiv front, there is fighting reported at Kozacha-Lopan. While this is not exactly unique, we have the first mention of Novaya Kozacha for the first time. Novaya Kozacha, mentioned by the Russian Defense Ministry. So this is the first time we have reports of fighting around this sector. I wonder if there is some kind of incursion already. Previously, we have fighting reported at Kharkiv. So now we have Kozacha-Lopan and Nova Kozacha. So this is getting more and more interesting. So let's see. Maybe this is just some shelling reports. Buhaivka is mentioned. Some shelling around here, not very important. And of course, we have the usual at Voschansk, our local Stalingrad. where the city is totally flattened. So fighting is still being reported around here. So mainly that's about it. Strategically, tactically, the only special thing is probably here with a potential incursion in this sector. Over in the Voreshna front, we have no reports coming from for the Voreshna front. Over the Kupiansk front, we have fighting reported over at Petropavlivka as well as Tepova Novoselivka. So information is coming from the Ukrainians, Ukrainian Defense Ministry. These are all both reported by the Ukrainians. But based on our experience, I think there's nothing burger. This is just skirmishes. And again, I have to emphasize the Ukrainians claim that the lines are here, but somehow the fighting is at Petropavlivka. Yeah, this is a bit weird. Over in the Borova front, we have the Russians fighting at Zarizove. As mentioned in the SITREP yesterday, because the SITREP was so late yesterday, so all the frontline changes already was mentioned in the SITREP. Russians has already entered into Bohuslavka. Zarizove is mentioned by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, by the way. So they are still talking about this area, but there's nothing else over at Borova front. Very quiet, and when it's so quiet, it's very suspicious. It feels like the Russians are planning something very unusual. Over the Lyman front, we have fighting reported at Myrny. This is mentioned by the Ukrainians, by the way. So this is actually quite special that the Ukrainians mentioned Myrny. Otherwise, geolocation of Russian forces entering into Novolyubivka. This is something new. Fighting is reported towards Novi, shelling at Rikodov as well as Drobisheve. So we need to zoom in into this one. This is mentioned by the Russians. So over at the Novolyubivka, Russian forces has been geolocated inside of Novolyubivka for the first time, and this means that the Russian forces have managed to attack into this region here, and most likely they have secured all this region here due to the geography here, because this is a river. So the river looks like this. So this is definitely under Russian control, and the Russians basically storming across the bridge into Novolyubivka. The northern sector here is unknown. So we are just doing a very conservative mapping around here. So across the river is Nevsky, or now the Ukrainians call it Balka Zuravka, which is weird. They used to call this Nevsky. So this is Nevsky. So anyway, the geolocation is kind of weird. It's geolocated as an attack by the Russian infantry. However, the Russian Defense Ministry in 22nd February already announced a capture. So this is a definite contradiction. So let's continue to watch and wait. Over in the Sivers front, the Russians are now mainly it's now on the offensive operation in this sector. We're fighting reported at Bilohorivka, Verkhomokyamsky, Ivano-Darivka, towards Sivers, and shelling reported at Risnikivka. Ivano-Darivka, Verkhomokyamsky, and Bilohorivka. All these are Ukrainian reports. So this Ukrainian, this is Russian. So, and I think Ukrainian as well. So there is definitely some operations currently happening at the Sivers front. This is one of the major action area. So something to watch out for. And the Ukrainian mapping have acknowledged that the Russian forces have captured up to this line based on Diptyate UA mapping. But for our side, because the geolocations is already beyond that. So anyway, let's continue to wait. They definitely is acknowledging the current flow of the war. Operation flow. Over at the Bakhmut front. At the Bakhmut front in the northern flank, some unusual things has happened. The Russian Defense Ministry announced the capture of Novomakove. So you can see Novomakove captured. How? That means something big has happened, totally unreported in this sector. Based on Ukrainian mapping, they only marked Kharkiv. This is the frontline changes at Kharkiv. This is by Diptyate UA. So they marked this as captured by the Russian forces. In fact, this is actually almost the entirety of Kharkiv. But the Russian Defense Ministry already talked about Novomakove. So there might be some kind of attack and conquest that we are not aware of. And so definitely something to watch out for, a bit unusual. So definitely there's a bit of an outlier of information. coming from the Russian side. So on the Ukrainian side, I think this is pretty much the entire town. Yeah. So the entire town has been captured. So I would say I will give this the flag. So Russian forces captured Kryvyi or Grigorovka in Russian. So that's the capture. 2. So yeah. So that's it. So this is the latest information. The mapping is just very recent, but there's not much mapping, just a little bit here and there. And this is the only major one. The Bilohorivka, we can't even see it on our map. There's no change on our map. Similarly, for Dnipro Energy or Dnipro Energia, there's no frontline changes on our side as well, because the geolocation precedes what they have. Central region, Mykolaiivka is mentioned, and fighting is reported at Chasivya. Is it Mykolaiivka or Mikhailivka? Nikolaevka. So Mykolaiivka is correct. So this is mentioned. Probably it's coming from this rear action. So, but the lack of updates here is super weird. So let's watch and see. Over in the southern flank, we have the mention of Peteshny, as well as Ozeryanivka. As I mentioned previously, Ozeryanivka is very unusual to be mentioned. This is mentioned by the Ukrainians. Peteshny is mentioned by the Russians. So this is a Russian report. This is a Ukrainian report. So geolocation of shelling of Ukrainian forces at Peteshny was mentioned. Might be related. No, these two might be the same thing. So that's all from Bakhmut front. Over the Toretsk front, we have fighting being reported at Druzhba. The Russian Defense Ministry for the first time mentioned fighting at Krimsky since the announcement of their capture of this area here. Druzhba is also mentioned by both sides, both Russians and the Ukrainians. So this is a bit weird because the Russians announced the capture of Dashny, and then now there's fighting at Druzhba. So weird in that sense. Fighting is reported at Toretsk, according to the Ukrainians. And then fighting is reported at Leonidivka, also mentioned by the Ukrainians. So the fighting at the Toretsk continues. And yeah, so that's mainly the thing around Toretsk front. Very unusual. In the southern flank, Alexandropil continued to be mentioned by the Russian Defense Ministry. So that's all for this area here. Over the northern flank of the Pokrovsk front, fighting is reported at Vodyane Druhi, Yelizavetivka, Novotoretsk. Ukrainian, all these are all information coming from the Ukrainian side. So that's all. Geolocation of Ukrainian forces at Tarasivka is noted. Didn't change our front line. So mainly there is some actions around this northern flank. But this is the zone where there is not going to be much. This is a pretty static zone. So don't expect too much from here. Over in the Minokhrad sector, very complicated. A lot of fighting reported here. We have fighting reported at Promin, towards Novopalivka, Tachansky, Novoukrenka, Shevchenko, towards Pokrovsk, Vifrove, as well as Pischany. So a lot of fighting reporters all around here. Information, Russian. This is mixed. Ukrainians. So let me draw a circle first. Russian, Ukrainian. Sorry, that is Russian. This is Ukrainian. And then this is Ukraine, Russian. So Ukrainian report, Russian report, promised by the Ukrainians. So you can see the difference in terms of the focus, or in terms of their reporting, with the Russians seemingly to be a bit more about the fighting towards Pokrovsk, and Ukrainians is talking about the border, the very closer to the front line. And there is an interesting geolocation. Ukrainian forces geolocated at the very southwestern part of Shevchenko. This means that the Ukrainians have penetrated all the way down and potentially could have taken the entire town of Shevchenko. That's a possibility. So, but conservatively, we just going to map it like this because we have no idea what the hell is happening. So very, very, very courageous Ukrainian forces continue to launch an attack in this sector. And let's see how they continue to fight out I think the most important is not just to capture the town. They have to develop a defensive position, a defendable position. So let's see how the Ukrainians going to deal with this. Potentially, this line looks not too bad if they can hold these lines. But yeah, it's gonna take some time. Over in the Pokrovsk front, at the Pokrovsk sector, we have fighting reported at Kotline, Budashny, Uspenivka, and Novo-Alexandrivka. Information is from Ukrainian, Russians, and Ukrainians. So Ukrainian, Russians, this one is Russian, and this one is Ukrainian. So that's mainly the situation here. The fact that the front line continued to be static around here, is a surprise to me, because I thought that the Russians would have already reached this border by now, but somehow they are unable to do so. So kudos to the Ukrainians, able to continue to keep the fight on. Over in the southern flank, we have this already mentioned, Russian forces taking the south of Yasinove. Fighting is reported at Sribny as well as Nadievka. Information is coming from the Ukrainians and the Russians. So this is a Ukrainian report, this is a Russian report. So mainly that's about it. It's getting a bit slower. So that's all from this sector. Over in the Andriivka front, we have the usual Ukraine, and Russian. So Russians, Ukrainian Defense Ministry reported the fighting at Andriivka and Constantinople. Both sides talk about Rosnev, whereas the Russians continue to talk about the fighting towards Bakhmut. So this is and then the geolocation of Russian airstrike at Bakhmut is noted. So nothing strategically, nothing have changed around here. So let's continue to wait for more information. Over at the Velika Novosibirsk front, this is of course a way more interesting. So we have the announcement by the Russian Defense Ministry confirming our mapping. Geolocation by Kremlin capitals confirmed the capture. Russian Defense Ministry finally now announced the same thing. So we have shelling reported at Koma. So Russian forces captured Dnipro and Ehyaya, despite the deep state UA didn't want to map it as such. They map a ridiculous mapping. Fighting is reported at Oradne as well as Belatsky. So this is I think this is by the Ukrainians, yep, and then the Oradne is by the Russians. So this Ukrainian report, Russian report. So basically that's about it. The Ukrainians map it really weirdly. They map the Russians lines like that, like something like this, which is super weird. Like, why would the Russians cross the river here to take when they could perfectly just fight through? So I'm not sure. So whatever it is, yeah, that's what it mapped. Over in the other side of the Velika Novosibirsk front, fighting is reported at Privyone as well as Novodarivka. The information is from the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, both of them is. So there's nothing much is happening around here. So that's all from this sector. Over at the Zaporizhia front, the fighting is being reported over at Novodanilivka, Novoandriivka, Bertikaki, as well as Kayamsky. I think most of them is by the Ukrainians. I think Novodanilivka is by the Russians. The rest are all Ukrainian reports, correct? So from memory, that's correct. So this Russian, Ukrainian reports. So the Russians are definitely still on some kind of offensive operation. Like I said, this is still first gear. This is very slow. So don't expect too much big updates around here until they are able to attrition away the Ukrainian defense, until they are able to break through. Tentatively, that's not the case. As I mentioned earlier, the Ukrainians still will be able to will be capable to fight for at least another 3 to 6 months. It is after the 6-month point, at least 6 months, at least 3 months. Then you will start to see some problems because of the recruitment issue. They just cannot replace the amount of soldiers that they are losing, and so that would then start to we start to see the collapse of the Ukrainian lines. If they continue to be able to recruit as per the current pace, they will still be able to last for the next 3 to 6 months to throw men into these defensive positions. Once they do not have enough men to throw into the trenches, lines will start to crack. So let's see. Over at the Kherson front, we only have shelling reported. We have shelling reported over at Sherevoye Mayat, which is the first time we see this being mentioned. Mikhailsk and Tonivka. So these three locations have some shelling reported by the Russian side, but not important. So that's all. So this is the summary for the day of 1113 for the 12th of March. So thank you for watching. Do press the like button, subscribe. Like I said, 100,000, so subscribe. And happy birthday to you guys who are having a birthday today. And yeah, and I wish you guys a great day ahead. And yeah, press like. Bye guys.